Now, going to submissions. This is basically the place where you will be submitting um, any of your CSVs or the predictions you would make for each round. We prefer that you do this via the SDK, but you also have the option to do it on the platform itself. So here you can do get round, which tells us that the current round running on the server is 106. So you can make predictions on a CSV, uh, put the round, change the round number as the current round, and then upload it here. Each of your submissions will show up here, as I'll show you in a little while. Again, we prefer you do this through the SDK, as you can do it via a while loop instead of doing it manually. For each prediction that you do, you will also have a score history. Right now, because we have no submissions, it'll just show no submission. I'll show a different account as well, where we have made some submissions and how they look like in your submission start. Now heading over to documentation, we have a couple distinctions here. So there's data. There's obviously an introduction and getting started. There is data on what data we provide and what are the formats of it, how they can be used by you. There is submissions. So how do you submit and what is an example of a submission type? How do we score? And we'll talk about backtesting, which is basically a way for you to test your model's predictions on past data before you send it live, send your predictions to the live format. We'll also be talking about modules. Basically, when you deploy, which is you deploy to a to our remote servers, you will have some modules installed, pre-installed on that server, which you can use. And if you want any other module to be deployed there, you can always reach out to us and we'll install it there for you. So if you click on modules, you'll see that there's a text file that opens up, and it includes all the modules that are present on the remote server along with the versions that are compatible. We can always customize this based on your liking. Right. Then there's the SDK guide, which we'll now hop onto. So for the platform, it's not just the UI. We've also built an entire API SDK, which you can use to do all of these current functions that you see on the platform. So when you click on API guide, it'll open up an API examples, and I'll just show you through it and then we'll play around with it. So we start with how to install Numin and the reference page to the Numin API, the SDK. How do you get started? So how do you import it? How do you initialize a client? You can always replace these placeholders with your API keys, as I'll be doing now. And you can introduce your training paths. Where do you want to save your files? Get current round, get data. What kind of data do you want? Validation data, and getting validation data for a particular date. And then an end-to-end example. So this is the most important part, because it'll give you a glimpse of the entire setup. So here we'll import it. We will create a Numin client. We'll download the training data. We will train our model. So for our example and for this guide, we'll be using a very simple buy strategy, which just places buy on each round for each ID present. Then we'll just get the current data. We will make our prediction on that round, and we will pass it through to the submit predictions function. This is a complete loop. So this is the reason that we encourage you to use the SDK, because for any number of rounds, you can submit your predictions automatically instead of doing it manually. So this is a very simple example of us providing a few number of rounds, indicating how many rounds you want to submit for. And it keeps checking the current round. And as soon as the round changes, it will make prediction and it will submit it automatically. You can change this however you want. Then you can monitor your score and improve. And some additional features that we have are backtesting. So for backtesting, you can use the data from any past history that we have. We'll be showing how you can get those dates, and then you can run a backtest just to see how your model performed on those data points. And there are two kinds of options for you to get. One is results and one is returns. I'll show you results and how they look in this notebook itself. So .get validation dates is just how to just the way to like get validation dates, and then you can use any of those validation dates here to run a backtest, which I'll show. And this is just a simple parsing result. So once you get the response, you can very easily use IPy or any other module that you like, and you can just display it in a better format. And then there is remote deployment. So remote deployment is where you deploy your model and your not model but like the prediction loop itself. So for example, this is an entire prediction loop. So you deploy this remotely to our servers, and it'll keep running. So you don't have to keep your local machine on. Neither would you have to pay for a server, and it'll just continue to run on our machines, and you'll get your feedback for those submissions on the platform. So yeah, that is a very basic idea of the notebook. And now I'll show you the actual demonstration of the notebook. So we have this same notebook with our chain with our paths and our API keys, which I'll change now for the new user that we've created. So I'll just take the API key and replace this. So let's start one by one. I'll just go ahead and import now. We'll create the client. Here we'll download the training data. So as you can see, the training data is downloaded, and you can see that there's a zip here. Next, once we have downloaded the training data, we will be going to train a model, but these are just sample functions. So I'm just going to show you how they work, and then we'll go to the end-to-end example. So as you can see, the current round is 106. We will get the round data for 106. As you can see, there's the data frame. We'll get validation dates. So you can use any of these validation dates to run your backtest, and we'll get the validation data. I'll show how to run the backtest further on. Now, let's come to the end-to-end example. We'll start from the beginning. And this is a very good mimic of how you would be using a REST API as well. So I'll skip the training data part because we have already done that. Now this is our model or function to make the predictions. All it does is for each ID that's present in the data,
places a sell order. 0 is a sell and 4 is a buy.
So I'll just run this, and now we'll go to the current round. 107, so it went ahead. Now we'll get the round data just to make sure that we are able to have it. And yeah, then we'll just make our predictions. So as you can see, it made predictions with zeros and the round number. So this is exactly what you would also be uploading on the platform if you choose to do that. Now we'll just save this. So it gets saved here as prediction round 107, and we'll just submit the predictions. So as it says, success, uploaded file saved successfully and will be used tomorrow. Okay, so this is the complete loop. So let's say, for example, I want to submit for, let's say, 10 rounds, 10 of the next rounds. I'll just change the round number to 10 here, right? And this is just a wait interval. So it checks every 10 seconds if the round has changed. I'll just run this. I don't think I need to change anything here. It'll keep submitting. So let's just run this. And we'll see for each round change, it'll submit something which will show up here. So it says submitting for round 107. I'll just stop it for now here. And we'll move ahead. So once the submissions have been made, you will get some scores based on those round predictions that you've made, which you can go on the platform and have a look. Based on those scores, your cumulative score, the leaderboard will shift. So if you've done really well, you can rank up the leaderboard, which has its own advantages. And you can always monitor how your peers are doing, which also kind of works in a collaborative form. And yeah, so basically you submit predictions for each round, make improvements, and try to rank up on the leaderboard. Now, the two additional features that we spoke about before, which was the backtesting and the deployment, is what we're going to be doing now. So backtesting, as I said, it's just a way for you to test your strategy using historical data. So you know how it's performing, and you can keep improving until you're satisfied with it and go ahead with the live version. You can learn more about it in the docs. So how backtesting works using Newman is we run a backtest on the provided strategy. So you would be providing us with your main prediction function, and we'll be using that to run the backtest. So the parameters are just user strategy. So the function that you're using for predictions, the date that you want to backtest on, the validation data, which is optional. So if you want to provide provide the validation data along with the backtest, you can do that using and the date must be given for that. And then you can choose the result type, which is either results or returns. We'll talk about more on them soon. The second thing that we have is the remote deployment, where you will be deploying your prediction script to our servers, and we'll keep running it for you. In this case, you would need the user ID, as I mentioned before. So that is why we had also picked our user IDs from the platform. You can get your user ID anytime you want. You can't change your user ID because we don't allow for that. So I'll just change the user ID here and here. So just to explain how this segment of the code is, you will have some submission file path. So in our case, it's called strategy.py. You will just open it as a read binary, which you will then upload to the platform. You'll pass the file object, you'll pass your user ID, which we will validate on the backend, and you'll pass the file name that you want to store with. We suggest you store with strategy.py as the name because it's easier. But you can choose to name anything. Choose to name it anything you want. So I'll just run this, and this should say strategy uploaded successfully. Now, once we know it's uploaded, you can hit deploy anytime you want. Even if you do not choose to hit deploy right now, the script will start your deployment 3 hours from now. You can choose to do it whenever you want. So I'll just run this, and you'll see the strategy has been deployed successfully. So now this is slightly the end of it for the notebook. But as your strategy starts making predictions, you can always go back to your submission and have a look that your strategy is submitting for each round. So right now it is submitted for 107. It'll continue to do it as rounds change.